Welcome, beautiful people, to Talking TSL, the podcast, web show, Discord Live, whatever the heck you want to call this thing, for the tradition of soccer and league. I'm your host, JFace907, and coming to you and me, as he did last time when we recorded, it is none other than the king of the ring. Wait, no. I think there was a bag fumbling there somewhere.
Please don't.
Or his name is Simi. How are you doing tonight, Simi?
I was doing so good because I had faith in you until that very moment. But I'm doing well, Jay. I am ready to go and talk about everything other than me.
Talk about everything other than what you put a nice cold Coke in. But I'm just here. This is what I enjoy, because clearly winning soccer matches is not something that is in my cards. But we'll get to how that goes later on. But what we're here for tonight is to recap how season 15 went, as well as provide a sneak preview into season 16. There's been some shakeups. Obviously, when you run a 4-table configuration, there's promotion, there's relegation, there's all of that. There's new management. There's management stepping aside for a brief hiatus. We've got it all. But first and foremost, I want to give you just a chance. I know it's a sensitive subject, but just a chance to tell me how you're doing. How are things in Munich? How are you just feeling overall right now as manager of the club?
Way too much. I feel like a Penn State quarterback getting way too much hype and expectations put on my shoulders here. But we're fine. We keep getting voted as the most likely to be relegated from Division 2, and we went to the back-to-back playoff finals. So I can't complain.
No, nor should you really have anything to complain about. I mean, when you consider that you were down in the doldrums of wherever we were when we were playing together. I don't even remember if it was 3 or 4. It was probably 4. But
I think it was 4, and then I think it went on to 3.
Yeah, and now you're in prime position to be a king, as I was alluding to in your intro.
But, I'm very happy to be in Division 2. I think it's my spot, because Division 1 just seems like too much of a gauntlet for me. One day we'll get there.
One day indeed. I mean, you were 2 points shy of the top spot, and then, like you said, you made it to the final. So opportunities were there for you. But sometimes it's just nice to just stay where you are. And that's what I'm doing. I'm staying where I'm at in Division 4 after an 8th place campaign where I went 5, 1, and 11. I tell you what, I said winning football matches, soccer matches wasn't my thing. It's more like not drawing is my thing. Like, it's win or lose for me. One loss is really tough. Or excuse me, one draw is really tough to do, especially in a video game like this where draws seem to be aplenty, but not for me. And I could have used really just 2 more draws. That would have put me tied for 7th, 2 more points. But yeah, just it was so boom or bust for me this year that it caused for a lot of frustration. But I will say,
is this a joke and we all fell for it? Lost J-Face.
that was so weird. I was never out of here. It just dropped my voice privileges. Maybe one of you admins in here just said, you know what, he's garbage. Let's turn him off. Let's mute his microphone.
I think they missed and got you instead of me.
Went to the wrong person. What was the last thing you heard?
You were about to tell us some things. You discussed your season, and you said, I believe it was one thing that I learned, and then that was it.
did I get to my shout out? Because that's what I was trying to give everybody a nice thank you for watching the streams and everything, because it really
We did not get to that, no.
Okay, because so yes, thank you guys for watching all the streams, because when you're boomer bust like my season was, with the 5 wins, 11 losses, and only the 1 draw, tilting is something that is very, very susceptible to happening. But everybody giving me crap in the chat, of the streams, and just allowing me to be just a weirdo, that was definitely a huge stress relief and keeps the tilting to a minimum, especially, something that I'll probably be looking to duplicate in other titles that are coming out later on this year, this summer specifically. But enough about me. Let's get into what happened in season 15. And first and foremost, let me bring up my run sheet here, as we call it in the biz. Let's talk about how the trophies were handed out. We'll start first with the trophies of each division, and then, or excuse me, the champions of each division, and then we'll get into the MVP awards.
That's good.
Right. So we start at the bottom where I'm at, Division 4, and we have the villains, as you could hear probably my kids letting their presence be known. Aston Villa taking the trophy in Division 4, which earns him an automatic promotion to Division 3, where we then saw through the playoff a trouser, the pants made it up. Chelsea, his squad, is in Division 3 as well. 2 individuals that I absolutely enjoy playing. So I'm definitely going to miss them, although we may have a reunion to speak of later. That's what they call a tease, but we'll get more into that later. But any surprises out of Division 4 in terms of the champion? Was Jumpy someone that you expected to see at the top?
So I have been waiting for Jumpy season to happen for a while now. The last 2 cycles of this game, I've played him in many friendlies, and he's always been very competitive in the friendlies, beating me time and time again, and just waiting to see that translate to the league. So I was happy to see him take the league outright. And Trousers, I didn't know much about Pants, obviously, as he was a new member to the league, but not surprised that he won it. Really, no surprises for me. I think it was a very competitive division, and it's always fun to watch Division 4.
Absolutely. A lot of fun to play in. Moving on over to Division 3, I'll start off with the promoted team via playoff first here, and that is RB Leipzig and the Moose, Sporting Moose, my brother in Moosehood. But winning the table in Division 3 was Real Madrid and Pepperbrony, someone who is no stranger to Division 2. I believe this Division 3 stay was a boomerang, if I'm not mistaken. But any surprises out of Division 3 there?
No, again, similarly, Moose has been a guy that I've played in multiple friendlies, and he's always very competitive, very tough. So happy to see that translate into the playoff. And then Pep, he's got a great squad and he's got great talent. So seeing him win is no surprise. I will say, though, we are not giving Pat enough crap for his fall from grace. I believe he had a bit of a hold on Division 3. If not, I'm making that up and just want to give something to drag him through the mud about.
Well, I mean, if nothing else, dropping the first round of the promotion playoff is guff enough. I mean, he was supposed to be a boomerang, if we're being totally honest with ourselves. But, in typical hat fashion, he is setting up shop in Division 3 for another year. Going onward to Division 2, we will also start in the promotion bracket here, where we did see the season of Uber, the season of Dur, the season of Brisbane, whatever, the season of Roar, whatever you want to call it, result in a return to Division 1 via the promotion playoff. We won't say who he was playing against in that, but it is back to D1 for Uber, with the title being awarded to none other than Isaac and Hockey Jock. Every time I see that name, I think of when I did a podcast with Oxshot, and he thought it was something about hacky sack, that was part of his name. But no, I'm sure it's Hockey Jock is the proper name there. But any surprises out of D2, your division?
No, again, both guys that got promoted. We're the favorites to get promoted. So obviously, not too surprising. I will say my biggest surprise was me yet again being in the final.
uh,
I
and
hated
then,
that season. That drove me nuts. That drove me nuts. The end of that season.
I mean, I think you just let the haters be your motivators. Or wait, no, you didn't have any. You had a bunch of reverse jinxers. That's what you had because everybody was ready, crowning you king. If I remember the Discord chatter at the time, I have a terrible memory, but I do believe that is what about how that went towards the last few bits of the season, their last couple weeks of the season.
Yeah, I blame Uber. He knew exactly what he was doing. But we move on to Division
We
1.
move on. Yes, we do. Where there's no such thing as a promotion playoff there, that is where we have a rush up the table, crown a winner, and then crown a grand champion through a playoff system. And top of the table was Warren and his IX side. And man, that was an impressive season he put together. Now, probably the story here was the third place finish out of Colby, but he did rectify that. His PSV Eindhoven side did turn out a playoff championship, robbing IX of TSL's, if I remember the headline correctly from our fearless leader, robbing him of the first ever treble. Boy, that would have been impressive if we had seen that. I mean, nonetheless, Warren's season was impressive enough, getting the cup trophy and the table trophy in Division 1.
Yeah, so I think it would have been Warren's first treble, which, he played like a bat out of hell those last few games, and Colby really rebounded. I think he got so frustrated with the game. I know I played him in a friendly shortly before the season ended or right after the season ended, and he was tuned up. He was ready to go. So to see him win the playoffs wasn't too surprising. It's not surprising in general to see either of those guys win, but to really see him bite down and clean up was nice to see yet again.
For sure. And I was producer chief of the podcast and the league, and everything TSL does say his first treble. So excuse me for that misspeak, and excuse me, Colby, because I do believe if that's the case, then you were the first treble winner, more than likely so. But that's how season 1 went in terms of team accomplishments. Well done to everybody who earned themselves a promotion and a title. We did not mention the relegated teams, but real quickly, we will run down those. Actually, you know what? That's where I get a little lost, because this is where who's vacating, or not vacating, but who's taking the year off and everything like that. I fully admit did not prepare for in this. Did you happen to know who is officially the relegated teams?
Yeah, I got it covered. So Fizz Rob did rebound right back down to Division 2. He played it tight to the end against Broth. And then Keeper Cabe also just had a tough season, but you and I have both played against him before. We know how good he is. He's coming back down to Division 2. From Division 2, NB unfortunately lost a very tight relegation battle by 1 point to move down to Division 3. And then Paris Pichan, he took the season off.
Everyone's favorite nut.
Everyone's favorite nut. So by default, he got relegated to Division 3. And then from Division 3 on to Division 4, Demi Doug, again, lost by 1 point. A tough relegation battle. And KJ Lamb also, unfortunately, just struggled this season. And he went down to Division 4.
He went down to Division 4, where, if I'm not mistaken, he is one of the individuals who will be stepping aside for at least this season to allow for some new blood to take over. And that is, I'm blanking, Benfica. What's his screen name?
Ben Fiquista.
Ben
I believe
Fiquista?
his name is. And he actually steps in for a departed member for Zidane 1906, who did not finish the second half of the season. AJ Lamb and the good doctor are sitting this next season out. But Ben Fiquista is filling into Division 4.
All right. So let's go ahead now and talk about the MVP winners in each division. Boy, I would say when I was just looking at the stats throughout the season, I was thinking to myself, a couple of these are going to be landslides, but boy, are some of them going to be some real tight ones. And my own Division 4, was definitely one of those where I thought could be anybody's ball game. But in Nasri, hope I got that right, but Yusuf and Nasri out of Lille was who ended up taking the Division 4 MVP. But I mean, there's Darweezy was a guy that, bent me over and spit roasted me. Sorry for the graphic language there, but I mean, the guy, I mean, Sauce Castillo in Gator, as I call him, that's a guy that he just really knows how to use. And then, oh gosh, Sebastian Szymanski. I probably butchered that, but from Via and Jumpy, his squad. You got to figure, yes, he finishes first. Maybe he gets himself some bump there, but he also put together a solid season. I did mention, though, that in Nasri eventually takes the crown. Anything that you have to rebut against that? Did you see this as possible an upset, or how do you see this one?
No, I think it's fair. I think it's fair to also point out that so I'm calling him En-Nesyri. I don't know if that's right at all. Won the Division 4 MVP by exactly one vote over Szymanski. So it was very tight, very competitive division, but definitely worthwhile.
For sure. Now, the next one is definitely one that just, being a observer of the league of this table, I was like, yeah, we've probably got ourselves a runaway here. And it was Griezmann, ex Newcastle, had to lose him. I think I lost him in my relegation season to the Fishbowl. But he for Leipzig just takes the crown of MVP, and it was one that everybody pretty much saw coming. Like we mentioned, Leipzig is on their way up to Division 2. Griezmann probably and Leipzig can perform that kind of goal output probably again at Division 2 with him. It was 26 goals that he finished with. Other people that were up for it was, Dusan Vlahovic from Toronto. Ultimately, Toronto kind of cannibalizes its own MVP candidates when you've got him out there with 39 goal contributions and then Mbappe right behind him with 33. So it's really, really hard. You're picking nits when you're trying to pick between those two guys. I mean, it wouldn't have surprised me if both of these guys were in the top 5 of voting, just the two of them. But anything you have on the Division 3 MVP?
No, honestly, I was surprised to not see Mbappe even in the nominees. But I mean, Vlahovic, obviously, RJ knows how to use them both. So not a total shock, but I was surprised to not see Mbappe. But yeah, Griezmann definitely deserves it, no doubt about it.
And here we get into Division 2, where you do get to take a little bit of a victory lap of sorts, but this was also another race that, as an onlooker, I was like, man, this could really, we could see something here. We could see some drama in the voting. But it is Cristiano Ronaldo, that comes out of there with the MVP award. And Thurman put up a solid, or Thuram. I always want to call him Thurman every time I see him. He puts up a nice little campaign as well. But Ronaldo with 24 goals, and where on the assists is he here? I'm having a squint to find his name on the assist. He does all his work in the goal scoring department, but solid season, and congratulations to you, sir, on the MVP crown.
Thank you. I wanted to do, a very loud, but my daughter's asleep above me, so I don't want to wake her up. But yeah, those power shots inside the box pay off. So keep giving me shit about it, but I'm gonna keep doing it.
All right, and then we go to Division 1, where I called this. I can't remember if he ended up winning it last year. I don't believe so. But I called this the moment it was mocked to happen. Neymar and Ajax. He put out the MVP rather dominantly. Just to tell you the type of season that he did have, we're taking a look at 22 goals, 11 assists, so 33 total goal contributions in league play. Everybody saw this coming. Ray Charles could see this one coming.
Yeah, I think actually, again, we might butcher these names. Szoboszlai won the MVP last season, but there is no surprise to see Neymar take it this season or any season that Warren has him. So obviously, well done and deserved.
Congratulations to everybody that did get themselves MVP awards. Some guys that finished on the outskirts in the voting were Talisca in Division 2, Kane in Division 1. Got to imagine there's a little bit of voter fatigue for Harry Kane, and really just a Dortmund striker in general for the MVP races there. Chesa at Real Madrid, Pepper Brony's guy was a third place finisher there. Again, shout out to everybody there for some solid seasons. But now let's start getting into season 16. So we've already had some player movement. Waivers had opened up, so the first few waiver claims have gone out. Already had a few trades. Your boy is back with Bruno G after the forced separation that we had to have from each other. We are reunited, and it feels so good. Any offseason moves of note out of yourself that you want to mention?
No, I have done absolutely nothing thus far for the offseason. So
Just
we're
wanted
looking
to
to repeat with the same exact squad.
just giving you a hard time there. But let's talk about some of these matchups that we will see in the first Cup week. And there are some doozies, including what I was alluding to with a reunion of sorts. I will be finding my pants again. I will be taking on Trousers in round 1 of Cup action. Some other notable matchups.
You want to just run through them all?
Yeah, let's run through them all. Now, I'm trying to remember we've got some F's here.
Those are forfeits. So just to start, the very first one here, Atlanta United hosting Orlando City. So KJ is going to be sitting out this season. So Atlanta, by default, Kyle will move on to the second round, and then Shakhtar.
Kyle's too, so we almost never would have known which Kyle you were talking about.
Oh yeah, and then yeah, so Shakhtar is also Webbs is sitting out the season, so he was scheduled to play Fizz and Fiorentina. So Fizz by default moves on to the second round.
And then after we get past those, we get into Real Salt Lake hosting Aberdeen, and Real Salt Lake is newly rebranded. Bobby, you can hate me now. He is taking on Aberdeen in the first round. Stevenage is taking on Western United. We've then got Fulham versus Inter Miami. RB Leipzig will be taking on our fearless leader and his Lille side. Toronto FC will then be taking on Atletico Madrid. We then have Brisbane Roar taking on Leverkusen. I have already mentioned Chelsea versus Newcastle. Chelsea will host that one, by the way. So Trousers, that is your hosting gig. But if you want to release the stream duties, I will be more than happy to take them from you so I can get buck wild on a camera on a Friday night. It may not be Friday. I have no idea. But then we have RB Salzburg against Charlie Roy. Is that what we agreed on last stream, was to call him Charlie Roy?
Yeah, that's good enough for me. I think it's Charlie Roy. Yeah, Charlie Roy. Let's go with that.
And then we've got your Bayern Munich squad hosting Apple the app for all my Black Eyed Peas fans there. Lyon versus AC Milan. Nottingham Forest against Tottenham. So, newbie, you are taking on Porto, the newly rebranded Demidug squad. And then we have Palermo against Stoke City and Venezia versus Benfica. Like I mentioned, some really quality matchups here. Looking forward to all of it. In your opinion, how do you like your, well, I guess I'm going to ask you how you like some, so of course it's going to be your opinion. Your Cup squad versus your League squad. Do you have any not hatred, but any more flavor or favor of one versus the other?
Obviously, having Ronaldo as my striker with the League squad makes a massive difference in my gameplay, as well as Kovacic, just with their play styles. It's certainly been a crutch I've leaned on. It's no secret. So having them available obviously helps. The Cup squad, I don't hate it. I will say I have now decisions to make this time around because I have more than 4 homegrowns on my roster, and I didn't have that luxury, I guess you want to say, or that problem last season to have to make those decisions to keep it within 4. So we'll see how that goes. But guys like Gyökeres, or Yorkie, as Steele calls him, got a massive upgrade. So I'm very excited to use him as my striker in the Cup.
Nice.
Always, Jay. How do you like your Cup squad compared to your League squad?
I have always said that my academy's trash. I try my best to give it some attention. It usually ends up either picking somebody who's from the same town that I live in right now, or someone that's, in Newcastle's academy, but on loan somewhere. And it's long shots. This is only the second cycle that I've been in here, and the squad that I assumed. I don't know if I would say I ruined the academy, but I didn't know much about anybody on the roster. So the roster is pretty much completely turned over. I think there's only like two guys from I'm trying to remember. Vinny P, I believe, was whose shell squad I took over that's even still around anymore. But it's still a fun time. I like just getting to use guys that I don't get to use primarily in league play. So on that basis alone, it's a fun time for me. But that is enough of the cup. You, sir, hosted an anonymous, I guess we could call them managers or sporting director poll just over the last couple days. And we have some results that we'd like to share.
I did. Where do you want to start? Division 1 or Division 4?
Let's start from the bottom to the top.
So, looking at Division 4, right now, the favorite to win that division outright is Llama, with 50% of the votes, by a wide margin. And then right behind him will be our fearless leader in Red Al, 925, to win that division outright. There are some others that got some votes. Demi Doug got a few, Gator got a few, Ben Faquista got a few. I think there's some good balance in there, but the balance really shows itself when it comes to the playoff. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys that got votes to win the playoff. Red's the favorite, closely followed by yourself, J-Face, with more than 16% of the votes.
The Bruno effect.
Yeah. Bruno G is going to really catapult you to victory, according to 16% of our voters here. So, as always, Division 4 just has some intense action. Looking forward to it. Do you have any thoughts on Division 4 this upcoming season?
It's going to be interesting. I have found that all of us are fairly equal, I will say. It's just a matter of who gets hot, who gets hot at the right time. I was starting to gain steam there really from about the 2/3 point of the season forward, but that's not what you want to do when you only have one win going into the 2/3 point of the season. So if I can somehow carry over this momentum that I started to build, and it's really just kind of I only play this game with y'all, and so it takes me a while to knock rust off and things like that. So I'm hoping that with a relatively quick turnaround for our season here, that I can keep that momentum rolling and turn it into at least a consistent, productive season.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think we're at the point with the 4 divisions now. So I joined on middle of last cycle, but I think the divisions themselves are getting really balanced. Obviously, occasionally you still get a new guy that comes into Division 4, and he could be really good and just dominate the division and move his way up, like we saw the last couple of cycles. Like with guys like Sports Freak, JC, really moving through and getting up to the top. But I think now we're seeing those divisions are really balanced more, and the competitiveness is just the parity is there in these divisions. So I agree completely with you. So with Division 3, the voting went fairly similarly, with one guy getting nearly half the votes, and that was NB, to win the division outright and bounce right back into Division 2. But Pishan is right behind him with 30%, and then for some reason 20% of the people voted for Akshat to win the division outright. So we'll see how that goes. Looking at the playoff, similarly, multiple votes across the board for another competitive playoff series and competitive division. NB also the favorite to win the playoff should he not make the take the table, but along with him, again, Akshat got 20% of the votes, and Pants got nearly 16 or 17% of the votes right behind him. So I think, again, Division 3 is going to be a competitive division, as it always is. Because when you look at the relegation picks, we have one guy that we already know is going to get relegated in Webbs because he's sitting the season out. He got less than half the votes. So that shows that your favorite, who unfortunately is Jumpy Lion, is the favorite to get relegated by a wide margin. But I'm going to say it right here: do not sleep on Jumpy. He is ready to play, and he will make some noise in Division 3.
So which pun should we go with? He's going to jump at the opportunity, or he's going to pounce like a lion?
let's see it. Let's see how the division plays out.
But no, I completely agree with your assessment of Division Three, and the voters' assessment as well. Definitely seems like a yo-yo kind of year for NB, not Bay, as I have long known that man as. I could also see really anyone in general just catching a heater and really causing some trouble. But I will also be following Jumpy, and I'm if he isn't, this is a division that I could see the difference between the final playoff spot and the relegation zone being very minimal.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think I probably shouldn't have a favorite, but I'm going to absolutely be rooting for Jumpy the entire time and hope he wins every game by 16 goals. But I'm very excited to see Akshat get relegated to Division 4 as well. So that'll be something to look forward
Come
to.
on, come over to come where your friends are, Akshat. Your friends are here in Division 4. And by friends, I mean me.
And then moving on to Division 2, which has always been a super competitive division. So we got 30 votes in this poll, and 3 people got the votes to win it outright. And by no surprise, it's the 2 guys that came from Division 1. In Fizz, he got more than 50% of the votes to win, and he got right back up to Division 1. And then Keeper got just under 17 votes to go back up. In second place with 30% of the votes was myself. So we'll see how that goes. It's nice to finally get votes to win the thing and not get relegated right away.
I would love to, if we could ever put together, I'm sure our, history guy / producer / head chief, all that stuff, I'm sure he could put this together, but I would love to know just what the rate is of a relegated Division 1 manager going down and immediately going back up. I have to imagine the hit rate's pretty high, just because, the Division 1 group is such class, really, really good players there. So when they do take their Division 2 detour, it's usually just for a hot second. But I do see yourself earning promotion, if not some silverware here in Division 2. So forgive me if I'm, one of the, I mean this genuinely. I'm not going to say this as some reverse jinxing or anything like that. I genuinely think that you do have a solid shot for some silverware this year. So you're my predicted winner, or not my predict. I'm not gonna say you're my predicted winner. I still got to give it to Fizz, but I do think you're gonna be right there, knocking on the doorstep. And then if you don't take the silverware, you're taking the promotion, good sir.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's nice to have some confidence going my way. But because I see the notifications piling up in the chat, and I'm not even going to bother looking at them because I know all that it is. So we're going to move right on to the playoff winner. I did receive 48% of the votes to win the playoff, but Fizz also got a good number. Next, right behind him is going to be Bobby with just about 13% of the votes. So I think Bobby is going to really turn it on this year. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people and really compete. So I like that vote there. And then looking at the relegation favorites, with nearly 80% of the votes, our guy Sporting Moose is the current favorite to get relegated right back down to Division 3. And right behind him, with about half the votes, is Nolan, who did escape the relegation battle this previous season, but our voters think he's going to be right back into it this year or this season. And right behind him, it's guys like Frizz and Pepper and London who are getting a majority of these votes.
I'm very curious to see what London's goal differential is going to be this year. I feel like I talked a big game for him in our season 15 preview, and 45 and 39. So a +6 goal differential, second place in goals scored in the division. I think he's going for first this year. I know I said this about him last year too, but he's going for first again this year in goals scored. Not going to say table. I already made that prediction. But in terms of the most goals scored in the league in Division 2, I think he's going to take that crown this year.
Yeah, we'll see how quickly, how fast, how speedy he can make the climb up the goal chart. But I think we need to just cut in real quickly because our stat man did give us some information. So on to your question about going down and coming right back up. Seb did it once. Isaac and Broth did it once as well. Fizz and Uber did it 3 times. Akshat did it. Oh no, I'm sorry. He did not do it twice. So he went down twice and did not come right back up.
Interesting. So, I mean, it is still a fairly decent hit rate. I mean, go figure. The only one that did not do it, didn't do it twice, and his name is also Akshat. So, that all makes sense. That jives. But So the hit rate still is relatively high. Maybe not quite as high as I was originally thinking, but still high nonetheless.
Absolutely. So let's moving on to Division One, the premier division of TSL. Like I teased in the chat earlier today, a previous winner is the favorite to win it again, and by no one's surprise, it's Warren with more than 50% of the votes, and Colby receiving about a quarter of the votes as well to win it outright. Steel is third with about 17%. And then Hoodle and Broth got one vote each to win that division outright. When it comes to the playoff, again, Warren and Colby by a wide margin get the majority of the votes. Steele getting 20% of the votes, and then guys like Hoodle and Broth and Sports Freak getting votes as well. So I've mentioned Broth's name a lot of times. When we look at the favorites to get relegated, Broth is by a wide margin the favorite to get relegated into Division Two, with just over 86% of the votes. Right behind him, Uber with just under half the votes, is the next favorite to get relegated back to Division Two. So again, I think this division, as we always see, is a competitive one. So I will see how it goes. What are your thoughts on Division One this cycle?
I think it's going to be more of the same. The battle is all in Division One is always who's going to find their way down to Division Two, and just looking at how last year went and seeing these teams having 50 and 56 goals scored against them. Gosh, that's gotta be hard to take, because that's where, and then Colby's always said this too, that's where the difference is made here in our league, is that who's defending the goal the best, and that's usually the type of guys that can stick around Division One, because sure, they can score quite a bit, but you got to have a way to defend the goal as well. I'm seeing Broth, and probably I'm sure we're gonna have somebody boomerang back down to Division Two, and
You could say
no,
Uber. You could say Uber.
he's been on a roller coaster lately. I mean, from flirting with silverware to down to Division Two, where he took silverware there. But I mean, it's just been kind of everywhere. I think that's ultimately where I might land. I don't know. Don't hate me. Don't hate me. I think I am going to land at Uber.
Yeah, you know what? I think Broth is one of those guys. He's always right there above the relegation. Well, I take that back. Recently, in recent memory for me being in the league or back in the league, is Broth always right there. He's either in the playoff contention or he's in relegation contention. So he's always on the fringe. So I can see it. But I did also vote for Sports Freak for JC, and that's no disrespect to him, but I know what it's like to be a new father. He's going to be a busy guy. So his time at the game might get taken away from him a little bit, and that might hinder him a bit this coming season.
Good point there. Yeah, anything that keeps you from getting in the friendlies that you might want to, or even just not feeling like you're rushing trying to beat the what is it? I don't play these darn games, but the red zone or whatever, when in those drop-in games, that's what it can feel like sometimes when the schedule is about to close and you need to play your games ASAP. And I know, other than elite FIFA play or EAFC, the other thing they're known for is playing everything at the last damn minute. But granted, they do it. It is like it's the red zone in those drop-in games, and everybody's getting in there or out of there or whatever it is. But yeah, adding a newborn baby on top of that definitely is going to add some stress to that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Moving on then, let's jump into our cup predictions for this season. Again, no surprise, Colby and Warren are getting the majority of the votes to win the Champions Cup outright. Poodle's sprinkled in here as well, which is no surprise. And then when it comes to the League Cup, we see guys like Isaac, we see guys like Seb and Keeper getting the majority of the votes to win those cups. What are your thoughts? Any favorites that you see, specifically speaking about the League Cup, or anybody that could really surprise when it comes to the Champions Cup?
No, I mean, I think our GMs, our managers, our sporting directors all got it right there. Those were all the names I was thinking of as well. Hate to be boring, but that's kind of just how things have gone for us. Usually, if it's not something outside interference, it's the guys that have the stronger academies that know how to use them, that take the League Cup, and then the champions. It's the same group of guys every year. So no disagreements with our group of sporting directors there.
Absolutely. So, Jay, I have to ask you, we're at the point in this podcast. Are you ready for a little spice?
You know, I think I am. I have some milk here next to me. I'm ready to. It's like I'm on hot ones, and I'm ready to go.
And you know what? I think guys mellowed out with this poll this year because the spice isn't as spicy. There's nothing as juicy. So I will be taking all of these, screenshotting them and sharing them for the whole group, and this every one of them will be shared. But just looking through some of these, this one here, Red will deliver a point sanction somewhere for the sour grape losing that's been going around the league. What are your thoughts on that?
You know what? It's interesting that that one caught your eye, because I'm going to put a name to that one. That's mine. You know, it seemed like a tipping point in the chat, so I called it out. I know it's not something that we do, but it's definitely something that was observed, noted, and not exactly something that was cared for. So I called it out.
We have to say that that was not planned, so I respect you for putting a name to that.
Yes.
Moving on, just looking at something else here. Someone mentioned that Sloppy will finally move divisions, either up or down. There will be no middle ground for Sloppy in season 16.
Ooh, okay. All right.
All right. And here's one that we may have already seen, but not necessarily a rule breaker. But this one here, someone said that someone tries to circumvent the roster rules and we get a new rule because of it. So there's some spice there, but have we
Yeah.
seen it? We don't know. It's been questioned a couple times in the chat over the last couple of days since waivers and the fishbowl have taken place.
And not to mention something that was hotly debated during the season, some spirit of the game kind of roster moves that were occurring were called out. And so just goes right in line with that.
Yeah, I agree completely. And let's pick out one more. Let's get something that's a little spicy. Isaac gets relegated again. Poor Isaac.
Oh, man. I don't agree with that one. I mean, that's why it's spice, though. You know, you got to put yourself out on a limb there. But that's one that I can't put a name to because I certainly would not have those words come out of my mouth. The relegation from the previous season was certainly surprising enough. So I think this might be actually Isaac's revenge on season 1 kind of season.
And I know we were going to stop there, but I saw Red's comment in the chat, and so I'm going to read one more. And this hot take was that we witness Simi's fall from grace, or he finally gets his own emoji.
Maybe that's why we elected to go off camera today, is that we didn't want to give any emoji fuel, emoji fire.
Well, listen, not long ago, I supplied a perfectly good image of myself in a cowboy hat that I was going to wear if we were on camera. So the pictures are out there. There's not stopping anybody, but we'll see how things go. So that's going to be it for our preseason poll. Again, I'm going to take the information, I'll make some graphics out of it, we'll share it, and then I'll take all of these hot takes and we'll post them in the chat.
All right, good times. And you can, you know, like I put the audio name, you can put a text name on mine too if you feel so frisky. But well, that was going to be a bad segue. It's time to end the podcast. But as we were doing before, thank you so much for being my co-host. I will not do the metaphors that I did previously. Thank you for joining me. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you also to our fearless leader, Red Al, and is it Moose? Who does the spreadsheets with him? I think.
Yeah, it's Moose.
Moose, yes. Thank you so much for the hard work you have put in to our spreadsheets so that they look beautiful, easy to follow, something to kill all kinds of time at work with. So appreciate you so much for all the hard work you do. And until next time, have a good season, everybody, and let's have some fun.